in Moscow, May 30th, 2023, 4:30 in the morning. A specific silence exists in the halls of absolute power. It is the silence of an elite that believes it has outsmarted history. For the residents of Rublyovka, a gated paradise of $20 million mansions, this quiet was a birthright. For 2 decades, the deal was simple: total loyalty to the Tsar in exchange for total immunity from the world. The war in Ukraine was a distant television show, a tragedy for those not wealthy enough to buy their way out. These mansions represented a fortress of indifference. But as the sun began to bleed over the horizon, that silence evaporated. It started as a low, rhythmic thrumming, like a persistent insect. To the oligarchs in silk sheets, it sounded like a lawnmower. But as the noise grew into a terrifying mechanical snarl, the realization set in. This wasn't a gardener. It was the sound of a war finally coming home to collect its debt. Ukraine didn't just strike a target, they shattered a social contract. They proved that even the most protected neighborhood on Earth is just another coordinate. This is the story of how a garage-built drone breached $1 billion defense shield. To understand this breach, we look at a mystery from the winter of 2022. While Russia launched waves of cruise missiles at the Ukrainian power grid, a silent project was brewing. They called it Project Black Box. Led by the Come Back Alive Foundation, the campaign asked ordinary Ukrainians for $6.3 million. They didn't show photos. They only offered a promise. This will reduce the enemy's offensive potential. Behind the scenes, Ukrainian intelligence was building a silent predator that shouldn't exist. When the box was opened, the world saw the Bober, the Beaver. Unlike sleek, multi-million-dollar missiles, the Bober is a testament to grit. It uses a canard-style design, meaning its small stability wings are at the front. To the untrained eye, it looks backwards, but its stability is brilliant. At a cost of just $100,000, the Bober offers a range of nearly 1,000 kilometers. Built from carbon fiber, it is nearly invisible to traditional radar. Its 4-stroke engine has a heat signature so small that standard infrared sensors struggle to lock on. It is a terrifyingly persistent ghost. Project Black Box wasn't just about a weapon, it was about a message. While the Kremlin perfected the S-400 to swat stealth jets, Ukraine built a fleet that could fly right under the radar's nose. The physics of air defense are cruel. The S-400 is designed for high-altitude threats. But the Bober exploited the radar horizon. By flying at altitudes below 50 meters, the drone remained in the radar shadow. In this zone, the Earth's own curvature acts as a physical shield. To a radar operator, these drones looked like birds or noise. If you cannot see it, you cannot kill it. The operation was a surgical swarm. Between 8 and 32 drones were launched, beginning a 500-mile journey. They utilized terrain masking, flying so low they could see the dew on the leaves. As the drones neared Moscow, they entered a sophisticated and extremely dense electronic warfare environment. GPS signals were spoofed and navigation apps across the city failed. Taxis stopped as their maps spun wildly. But the Bober didn't need a satellite. Imagine the scene inside the Russian Electronic Warfare Command. The screens are glowing with interference. They are dumping megawatts of energy into the sky to blind anything with a GPS receiver. They believe they have won. They believe the drones are now blind, wandering into the trees. But deep inside the Bober's composite skull, the internal brain takes over. This is the first hidden tension of the morning. The drone is no longer listening to the stars. It is feeling the Earth. Through inertial navigation, it counts every vibration, every change in wind speed, and every millisecond of flight. It is a mechanical zombie immune to the Kremlin's invisible walls. It pushes through the electronic storm, emerging on the other side with terrifying precision. It finds the Rublyovo-Uspenskoye highway, the direct artery to the luxury estates of the men who started the war. By 6:30 a.m., the first explosions hit residential districts. But the greatest damage that morning wasn't caused by Ukrainian explosives. The Russian defense itself caused it. When a Pantsir missile system fires an interceptor over a city of precisely 12 million people, the laws of physics are unforgiving. Burning debris rained down on the very elite apartments they were meant to protect. High-ranking officials fled their estates in their pajamas. Now, consider the second hidden tension, the moment of impact. at Novo Ogoryovo. This isn't just a neighborhood, it is the Tsar's personal residence. As the sirens wailed, the unthinkable happened. For 20 years, this man had projected an image of total control, sitting at the end of excessively long tables, separated from the reality of the front lines by thousands of miles. Suddenly, the windows of the palace itself began to rattle. The Secret Service details scrambled. The most heavily guarded person in the world was suddenly staring at the ceiling, wondering if a $100,000 piece of plastic was about to end the era. The Tsar was in his palace, and for the first time in 2 decades, he was within the blast radius. The gilded cage was no longer a sanctuary, it was a target. This realization rippled through the bunkers. If he wasn't safe, nobody was. The true success of the strike was the concept of strategic dilution. In a war of attrition, the most valuable resource is geography. Every time a $100,000 drone flies toward Moscow, Putin is forced to make a nightmare choice. He can let the drones hit, causing a political disaster, or he can move his best air defense systems away from the front lines to protect the capital. He chose his own neighborhood. Satellite imagery showed the high-end S-400 batteries being pulled away from the trenches in the Donbass and dragged back to Moscow. Ukraine had successfully baited the Russian military into a trap. They traded plastic and lawnmower engines for the tactical vulnerability of an entire army. Thousands of Russian soldiers were left without air cover because the Kremlin had to prioritize the windows of the oligarchs. Ukraine didn't need to kill a leader. They just needed to make him act like a man who was afraid. Consider the economics. A single S-400 battery represents billions of dollars in investment. A single interceptor missile costs more than 20 times the price of the Bober drone. This is a calculated mathematical death spiral. Russia cannot afford to protect every inch of its vast territory against a swarm of cheap, specialized composite drones. By forcing these systems into a defensive posture around Moscow, Ukraine created corridors of vulnerability along the vulnerable front lines. This is a masterclass in psychological exhaustion. The drone engineers in Kyiv understood that you do not have to win a head-on collision with a giant if you can make the giant trip over its own feet. Every Bober that natters toward a Russian city is a tax on the Russian state budget. It forces the military to divert resources, person-hours, and technology away from the battlefield. It creates insecurity that trickles down to every citizen. The morning of May 30th was the day the rear guard died. It was the day the residents of Moscow realized the war had found their address. Project Black Box showed what happens when a nation's civilians fund their own air force. It showed that a garage-built drone can bring a superpower to a standstill. As technology democratizes destruction, the walls are getting thinner. The Beaver and the UJ-22 carry a payload of 20 kilograms, but their most explosive delivery was the truth. The message from the engineers was clear. As long as there is no peace in Ukraine, there will be no silence in Rublyovka. The war has a way of finding everyone eventually, and for the elite of Moscow, the unmistakable hum of the Bober is a sound they will never unhear. The geometry of the conflict has shifted. The sanctuary of the powerful has become the front line of the next generation of war. Write your tactical analysis in the comments. We'll see you in the next deep dive. Stay sharp.